All right, let's just dive right in with a huge question. What is reality? For literally thousands of years, some of the smartest people have wrestled with this idea that the world we see and touch, well, it might just be an illusion. Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful concept for this called Maya.
Just take a second and look around you. Really look. Everything feels solid, right? It feels real. But what if it's not? Think about this question for a moment. If everything is always in a state of change, was it ever truly there to begin with? It's a bit of a mind-bender.
And this isn't some far-out philosophical puzzle. It's happening all around us, all the time. You see a beautiful flower at its absolute peak, but you just know it's eventually going to wither. We look at pictures of incredible, thriving civilizations, knowing that today they're nothing but ruins. This constant change isn't the exception, it is the rule.
But here's the really fascinating part. While the flower withers and empires fall, there's one thing that feels constant, doesn't it? The you that's watching all of this happen? The consciousness, the awareness that's taking all this in? That feels like it stays the same.
This leads to a classic analogy that you probably heard before, the dream. You know, when you're dreaming, it feels 100% real. The fear, the joy, all of it. But the second you wake up, poof, the illusion is gone. So the question is, if our waking world is just as temporary, how can we be so sure it's any more real than a dream?
Now, the logical, modern part of our brain immediately jumps in and says, okay, but what about science? And science is amazing, it really is. It's incredible at telling us the how. It tells us how leaves are green because of chlorophyll, how things fall because of gravity, how we evolve. It gives us the schematics of our world.
But, and this is a huge but, this is where science kind of hits a wall. It can explain every single mechanical process in a tree down to the atom, but it can't tell us the purpose of the tree. We know how it's all working, but we're still left totally in the dark about why it's here at all.
And this gap between the how and the why isn't just some academic problem. It's the source of that nagging feeling we all get sometimes, that something's missing, that what our senses are telling us isn't the whole story, and that can lead to some very real anxiety.
And this is where this ancient idea comes in to give that feeling a name, Maya. You can think of Maya as the veil. It's what seems to be there, but it's not the complete truth. It's the grand illusion, the filter that keeps us from seeing the ultimate capital R reality that's behind it all. There's a perfect story to explain this, the blind men and the elephant. One man touches the leg and says, aha, it's a tree trunk. Another grabs the tail and is convinced it's a rope. A third feels the giant ear and thinks it's a fan. Now here's the key. None of them are wrong, based on their limited information. Their experience is true for them, but they are all completely missing the bigger picture of the elephant. That's us, living in Maya. Now, I know when you hear the word illusion, it's easy to think this is all a bit of a downer, a bit negative, but it's actually the exact opposite. Realizing that Maya exists isn't the end of the line. No way. It's the starting point for the greatest adventure there is, the quest to peek behind that curtain and get to know the unknown. So, what's actually weaving this veil of illusion? Well, this philosophy boils it down to two main culprits, time and forms. Time is what takes this single, eternal moment and chops it up into past, present, and future. And forms, well, forms are all the labels we cling to. Our names, our jobs, our bodies, that make us think we are these temporary things instead of something more fundamental. And the effect of being trapped by time and form is huge. It creates this powerful feeling of being separate. You feel like an I that's completely distinct from everything else out there. It can make you feel isolated, like you're just being dragged along by the river of time towards some destiny you can't control.
Which naturally leads us to the big, scary question that's probably been floating around in your head. If this whole world we live in, the world we love and struggle in, is just an illusion, then what's the point? Is life just meaningless?
But the answer this philosophy offers is actually really beautiful. The reality isn't the static things that are always changing. The reality is the change itself. The truth is the energy, the constant dynamic flow of life, and the deep consciousness that's aware of it all. That's the real deal. So, far from being some call to check out of life, this whole quest to see beyond Maya is the engine of, well, pretty much everything. That deep human desire to understand what's really going on, to see behind the curtain, that's what drives philosophy, science, art. It's the spark behind all of our greatest accomplishments. And that brings us to our final thought. We've talked a lot about the changing world being the illusion.
But that flips the whole thing inward, doesn't it? If the world we see is Maya, then what is that constant, unchanging self that's been doing the watching this whole time? That's something to think about.